So better na yung feed ko. Ahem. Okay, 140. Okay. Okay. Good evening, I'm Robbie Alampay. The big stories tonight. The anti-terror law faces more opposition, this time from the U.S. Congress. One American lawmaker seeks to cut security aid to the Philippines until human rights concerns are addressed. It might take time before vaccine tests are conducted in the country. The FDA, in fact, has yet to receive any application for clinical trials. The agency wants to speed up the process for the approval of vaccines. The Army social media chief gets dragged into the controversy over accounts shut down by Facebook for what the social media giant calls coordinated inauthentic behavior. The AFP wants their so-called advocacy pages restored. And it is official, the PBA will be back starting October 11. The Interagency Task Force has approved the restart of the PBA 2020 season. The league's bubble tournament has been granted provisional authority. And Gundam comes to life. The 18-meter-high humanoid robot in Japan gave fans a sneak preview to prove that it really has the moves. We begin tonight with another challenge to the Philippine government, this time from the U.S. Congress. A lawmaker is questioning the passage of the Anti-Terror Act and is now calling to cut their country's support to the Philippine police and military. Maricel Halili has the details.
An American legislator introduced a bill before the U.S. Congress seeking to suspend police and military aid to the Philippines. This is in response to the passage of the controversial anti-terror law in the country that is now challenged by at least 35 petitions before the Supreme Court due to supposed threats of human rights abuse. Pennsylvania Representative Susan Wild said the Philippine Human Rights Bill outlines the criteria that the Philippine government must meet in order to resume such funding from the U.S.
Rodrigo Duterte's brutal regime is using the pretext of a so-called anti-terrorism law to ramp up efforts targeting labor organizers, workers, and political opponents. This law allows suspects to be detained by the police or military without charges for as long as 24 days and placed under surveillance for up to 90 days.
Still, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque expressed confidence over the relationship of the U.S. and the Philippines. In his press briefing earlier, he said that like in the Philippines, any legislator can file a bill, but its enactment is not guaranteed.
That's a very wild suggestion. Kampante po kami na ang State Department naman po at ang administration ni President Trump dahil sa malapit na pagkakaibigan ng ating presidente kay President Trump ay nakikita ang halaga ng patuloy na kooperasyon sa parte po ng Estados Unidos at ng Pilipinas.
Malacanang also emphasized that the government will not meddle with the U.S. Congress.
Pero kampante nga tayo na sa tingin ko kinikilala naman ng Estados Unidos ang halaga ng Pilipinas sa pagiging partner niya pagdating din sa mga usaping national security ng Estados Unidos mismo.
Meanwhile, Senator Panfilo Lacson, who spearheads the Senate Committee on National Defense and Security, says that any member of the U.S. Congress has the right to file any legislative measure. Its approval, he warns, will also be a big loss for the U.S. After all, he notes, a major part of the security assistance to the Philippines is used to combat terrorism. The senator adds the U.S. Congress may have to resolve the legal issue over the visiting forces agreement between the U.S. and the Philippines. Recall that on Friday, the European Parliament has threatened to cut the Philippines' export tariff perks in light of alleged human rights abuses. Unshaken, the palace has answered back, telling the European Parliament to go ahead if they want to burden Filipinos during the crisis. On Tuesday night, no less than President Duterte defended the passage of the Anti-Terrorism Act during his address at the 75th United Nations General Assembly. He also slammed groups that are weaponizing human rights to allegedly discredit the Philippine government. For News 5, Maricel Halili, We Are One News.
In foreign relations, Senator Coco Pimentel says the Philippines does not have to choose between the United States and China. In a laging handa briefing, Pimentel, who is also the chairperson of the Senate Committee on Foreign Relations, says the Philippines can be friends with both superpowers. He says the country does not take sides and it is only pursuing its best interest in trading and other foreign policy.
Pagdating po sa specifically sa US at saka sa China, kailangan magbabalancing tayo ang importante, balancing act yan. Wala tayong kakampihan, ang nasa puso at isip lang natin, what is for the best of the Philippines, the best interest of the country.
President Duterte has said there is no solution to the pandemic without a COVID-19 vaccine. So how long should the public wait? Greg Gregorio tries to find the answer in this report.
The Philippine government is already in negotiations with several manufacturers of COVID-19 vaccines in development. But so far, the Food and Drug Administration, which regulates the conduct of every clinical trial in the country, admitted
na wala pang umaabot sa FDA na application for a clinical trial for a COVID-19 vaccine.
FDA Director General Eric Domingo explains a manufacturer has to secure recommendation from the DOST's Vaccine Experts Panel and the separate Ethics Review Board before filing an application to the FDA. Right now, only Russia's Sputnik V and Johnson & Johnson's Janssen vaccines are undergoing the DOST's evaluation. On Monday, the Department of Health said the government is still waiting for documentary requirements from the manufacturers of Sputnik V.
Isa sa hiningi natin sa kanila during that time was the clinical trial protocol na hanggang ngayon kasi inaantay pa ng ating vaccine experts panel.
As for other candidate vaccines, DOH earlier said that the confidentiality data agreements are still pending. The FDA vows to process applications in just a little over a month, 2 weeks shorter than the usual 2-month process. But Domingo clarifies this does not mean special treatment and that they will still ensure the safety and efficacy of any candidate vaccine.
And then since it will be approved already by pre-approval by the Vaccine Expert Panel and then the Ethics Board, yung technical review ng FDA instead of 4 weeks, kaya na namin gawin in 2 weeks yan kasi meron ng pre-evaluation.
It was earlier announced that a Phase 3 clinical trial for a COVID-19 vaccine may be started in the country by October and could be made available in the market by the second quarter of 2021. But Domingo said a mere completion of Phase 3 trial does not guarantee a vaccine certificate of product registration for a controlled and monitored market release. as its level of efficacy should not be lower than 60 or 70%. Meanwhile, there are 2 administrative orders which streamlines procedures when a COVID-19 vaccine has been registered to a reputable FDA counterpart in other countries or when it has been pre-qualified by the World Health Organization. These are pending Health Secretary Francisco Duque's approval. For News 5, Greg Gregorio, we are One News.
Despite a 1-month decline in COVID-19 cases in Metro Manila, the University of the Philippines Octa Research Group is warning against easing quarantine restrictions in the National Capital Region. In an interview with Radyo 5's Orly Already, UP Octa Research Dr. Guido David says the trend in NCR is headed to the right direction as positivity rates and hospital occupancy are now lower. But he warned that government should hold off on easing quarantine measures as neighboring cities in Calabarzon and Bulacan still have high infection rates.
Kahit maging okay na dito, baka mamaya yung surging cases sa Calabarzon will affect yung people sa Metro Manila. Lalo na medyo porous yung borders natin. Hindi naman na-check yung mga people going in out.
Let's pause for a quick break. When the big story returns, the military social media head is linked to the accounts purged by Facebook on Wednesday. The AFP is standing by their official. And the discussion over Manila-based man-made beach has already reached the Supreme Court. The details of the charge next. You're watching The Big Story. I'm Robbie Alampay. The Philippine Army and the AFP are standing by one of their officials linked to the supposedly fake accounts on Facebook. They are also appealing for more consideration before pages are shut down. Pat Mangune tells us more.
The Philippine Army has confirmed that one of the accounts that Facebook took down belongs to the head of their social media center. Captain Alexander Cabales was the administrator of the page Hands Off Our Children, which was removed from the platform Wednesday. Outside of this, he mainly manages the Facebook page of the Army's official news portal, Kalinaw News. The Army said it's possible that Facebook took down Cabales' personal account at the same time.
We are alarmed. And that we're concerned, especially one of our officers was named. And an officer that we hold in high esteem because he handles our social media training and social media platform, the Kalinaw News. So we are alarmed by it, but we trust him. We're confident that he did not do anything wrong, but we will look into it.
The Armed Forces of the Philippines also agreed that Cabales did not commit any offense, although his link to the page, Hands Off Our Children, was of his own personal accord. AFP also defended the page, which seeks to stop the NPA's alleged recruitment of students.
If what he is doing in social media, using his personal account, does not run contra the armed forces of the Philippines and in fact supports or advances the mission accomplishment of the AFP, then we do not see any violation in his actions. Because he still remains within the confines and follow the letter and spirit of the AFP social media use and policy.
Facebook has taken down 155 accounts, 11 pages, 9 groups, and 6 Instagram accounts due to coordinated inauthentic behavior. Its security police head, Nathaniel Glacier, reported that some of the pages were linked to the Philippine police and the military. The AFP has yet to identify the said accounts and pages. They also appealed to Facebook's policy team to look at an account's content before shutting it down.
Kaya nga ang naging bahagi ng apela ng ating butihing Chief of Staff ay kung pwede nilang bisitahin yung kanilang existing na policy hinggil sa mga account na na-take down na nila at sa hindi nila pagtingin doon sa content sa halip sa tinatawag nilang behavior sila tumitingin. Which again, as I said earlier, yung CIB, what constitutes CIB, yun po ang hindi gasinong nahimay sa atin doon sa maiksing panahon ng pakikipag-ugnayan natin sa FB Philippines policy team.
AFP and Facebook Philippines will have another meeting to continue discussions on the matter. For News 5, Patricia Mangune. We are One News.
One lawmaker says the appeal of the Armed Forces Chief for Facebook to restore their pages removed from the platform further incriminates the military. Gabriela Bartelis Representative Arlene Brosa says the appeal proves that the Armed Forces Facebook pages use advocacy fronts to waste public funds to spread lies and tag activists as terrorists. Facebook had earlier explained that its removal of accounts and pages were due to behavior and not content. AFP Chief Gilbert Gapay made the appeal during a courtesy call by Facebook's head of public policy in the Philippines on Wednesday. In the meeting, a possible partnership was discussed to prevent terrorist exploitation of the social media platform. Gapay assured that rights of users to free expression will not be curtailed under the possible partnership. The Philippine National Police has also assured the public that it will never snoop on private social media posts. Speaking to the chiefs on One News, PNP Chief Camilo Casculan said the National Police will only monitor public posts and those that went viral. The country's top cop also added that they do not have the technology to access private posts on social media because the Joint Task Force COVID-19 Shield ordered local police commanders to monitor social media for possible quarantine violations posted online. Should there be any abuse or irregularity, Casculan says the PNP will be open to third-party investigations.
We will never snoop in anybody's Facebook or pasensya na po kayo, I don't have Facebook. But I will never snoop. We have actually directed our people not to snoop in other people's private Facebooks. You don't need to give up your civil liberties. We will never snoop. Please, we assure the public that we are not snoopers here. We are investigators and we will investigate properly.
And these are the other big stories today. Eugenio Gabi Lopez III has tendered his resignation as ABS-CBN's Chairman Emeritus and Director. He also vacated his post as Director of other Lopez-owned companies. The network said Lopez left due to personal reasons. ABS-CBN General Counsel and Board of Advisors member Maria Luza Bautista will sit as the new director of the network. The Justice Department has terminated the reinvestigation into the case against Senator Coco Pimentel for his quarantine protocols breach. In Thursday's Laging Handa briefing, the senator confirmed that the case was already submitted for resolution. Deputy Majority Leader and Pampanga Representative Mikey Arroyo is appealing to the Commission on Elections to postpone the upcoming 2022 elections. Arroyo, during the House deliberations on the COMELEC's budget, asked if the agency has any plan B should the pandemic extend up to 2022. COMELEC Chair Sharif Abbas said a postponement is not an option and that they are studying health protocols like conducting the elections over 2 days. The debate on Manila's man-made beach has now reached the Supreme Court. A group has lodged a petition seeking to cite the Environment Department in contempt over the controversial project. The DNR's response in this report by Shiloh Francisco.
The Akbayan Citizens Action Party on Thursday filed a motion before the Supreme Court to cite the Environment Department in contempt over the dumping of crushed dolomites along Manila Bay. The group alleged that the project is in violation of the continuing mandamus ordering the DNR and other agencies to rehabilitate and preserve Manila Bay. Explaining further, Akbayan said the dumping of artificial white sand is not part of the Sustainable Development Master Plan for Manila Bay.
Dapat talagang linisin ang Manila Bay, but if we are to clean up Manila Bay, it has to be done in the right way.
The group also called on the High Court to convene the Manila Bay Advisory Committee, headed by Chief Justice Diosdado Peralta, to review the impact of the project. In response, the DNR said it welcomes the motion filed by the group. It insisted, however, that there were no violations committed.
Everything passed through regularly and above board. Walang irregularities dito. So with that, I don't think na meron po kami dapat katakutan, and we will face them.
Antiporda also denied reports that the crushed dolomites were already washed away due to heavy rains. He said the site in question is part of the Phase 2 of the beach nourishment effort, which is still under construction. The department further revealed that they may do away with the dolomite sand for the latter part of the project.
We're trying to come up with a maging white sand pa rin siya, but a while ago, as per the statement of our secretary, if in case talagang wala nang pagkukunan ng dolomite, we will be forced to use yung lighter color na black sand.
For now, the artificial white sand along Manila Bay continues to attract visitors. The DNR plans to seal the area to ensure that the project will not be hampered by onlookers.
You will notice maraming tao pumupunta, nagpapa-selfie, and of course, pagka dumadaan yung mga heavy equipments natin, baka may madisgrasya. So we want to avoid things like that. And at the same time, para maging mabilis din yung pagkilos.
Shaila Francisco, BR1 News.
We'll pause for a short break, but when the big story returns, mark your calendars, PBA fans, as the league gets government's nod to restart its season come October 11. And Japan is taking kids at heart a trip down memory lane. They just unveiled the most real-life replica yet of their famous Gundam robot. More after the break. I'm Robbie Alampay. You're still watching The Big Story. Now, for those of you eager to go to Boracay once it reopens in October, you might also want to consider Bohol, as it too could open its doors to tourists next month. National Task Force Against COVID-19 Chief Implementer Carlito Galvez Jr. says the province is ready to accept tourists once again. If so, Bohol, like Baguio and Ilocos, will be part of the so-called tourism bubbles to help restart the country's tourism industry.
At nakita po natin talaga na prepared si Governor Yap sa kanyang preparasyon maybe this coming October early October or maybe at the middle of October, pwede na muna siya nang magbukas ng mga tinatawag nating mga local tourism niya.
Now, from tourism bubbles to the PBA bubble tournament, which has just gotten the government's nod. Deputy Chief Implementer of the COVID-19 plan, Vince Dizon, announced that the Interagency Task Force has granted the league provisional authority. This means that trainings, practice games, and 5-on-5 matches will be allowed in the bubble. Dizon added that there will also be regular testing and monitoring of players, coaches, and all participants. PBA Commissioner Willie Marcial, meanwhile, said anyone who violates protocols will be slapped with a steep penalty.
Kahit sino, staff, TV crew, player, automatic 100,000. Players, pati sigurado, yung staff din, yung sa TV5, walang sweldo for 1 month. Okay? Players, sa susunod na conference, 5-game suspension without pay pa rin.
Online shopping has boomed since the start of the COVID-19 pandemic, and with the upcoming holiday season, shopping malls are starting to adapt to the trend in order to keep their businesses alive. So how will online window shopping work? JC Costico tells us.
It's that time of the year again for Andrea to splurge on Christmas gift items in Divisoria. But with the threat of COVID-19, she has no choice but to shop at home.
Ang pinaka-maganda sa online shopping is yung hindi ka nalalabas ng bahay.
Bakit, ma'am?
Parang hindi ka mangangamba. Hindi ka na mangangamba din na baka makakuha ka ng virus. Pagdating ng items, disinfect pa din siya yung packaging before opening. Tapos pag nabuksan, isa-isa din i-disinfect.
She plans to checking out malls that have introduced alternative ways for customers to shop. Several malls in Metro Manila have maximized technology to still ensure the safety of their customers. Window shopping is still a thing, thanks to newly created online communities. Some department stores have also launched their call to deliver service, where the items are delivered straight to the customers' doors.
The customers would just call us or reach out to us, and then we will send them options, kung ano yung kailangan niyang bilhin, and then we will process the order, and then we will deliver para they can get what they need without having to, go out of their house.
Mall officials are hopeful that despite the pandemic, sales will increase during the Burr months.
We are seeing our customers slowly coming back starting this month. So we are very confident that we will achieve a sense of normalcy in the coming holidays, this coming months.
For its part, the Trade Department has expressed support to the initiatives.
We're happy na nag-expand rin yung business nila kasi because people cannot go physically to the stores, so nag-expand sila into e-commerce, which is good kasi this is going to be part of the development that we're doing of the e-commerce industry.
The DTI also has a piece of advice for Christmas shoppers.
Sana tingnan natin munang mabuti yung binibilihan natin kasi a lot of times we get so attracted to products that are advertised online pero hindi natin na napapansin kung sino ba yung seller, legitimate ba to, may physical address pa, may contact number pa, registered ba siya.
For News 5, JC Costico, VR1 News.
And here are some of the big stories across the globe. A South Korean official who went missing from a fisheries patrol boat earlier this week was shot dead and burned by North Korean troops. That's according to South Korea's military. The military did not explain how the official ended up in North Korean waters, but says it strongly condemns such atrocities and it strongly demanded punishment for those responsible. State-run news agency Yonhap cited unnamed intelligence sources in Seoul who said the missing official had been attempting to defect to the north. We're going to see what happens. This is the response of U.S. President Donald Trump when asked if he will commit to a peaceful transfer of power should he lose the November 3 elections to Democratic rival Joe Biden. The president repeatedly cast doubt on the legitimacy of the elections as Democrats push for mail-in voting during the pandemic, which, says Trump, will lead to fraud. Now, here's something to bring up some nostalgia. A life-sized Gundam, or a humanoid based on the famous anime, has been built in Japan, and it moves. The Gundam factory unveiled their 60-foot creation in Yokohama port last September 21, showcasing in a time-lapse footage that it can raise its arms, raise a finger, and even kneel. The makers of the Gundam initially planned to launch it as part of a new tourist attraction before the pandemic hit. Visitors would have been able to look at the giant robot at eye level. It is by far the most true-to-size Gundam ever made since the animated series premiered. And that wraps up today's big story. Catch us again tomorrow, 8 p.m. on Signal Channels 8 and 250. Please like our Facebook page, One News. For more in-depth analysis, visit our webpage, onenews.ph. I'm Robbie Alampay. We are One News. Good evening.